evening, everyone. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to the SAG-AFTRA conversation with the family. Joining us tonight is one of the best actresses working today. She is a 3-time Oscar nominee. She can do everything from Face Off to The Ice Storm to last year's Oscar-winning movie Room. We now have the pleasure of watching her every week as ambitious politician and mother Claire Warren on The Family, a role that has earned her some of the best reviews of a career really full of great reviews. Please welcome Joan Allen.
You.
I was saying it was so exciting to be in a room not only of Joan Allen fans, but family fans, because I watch this show every week screaming.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And always in the last 2 minutes, you guys do something that are like, oh, yeah, oh.
I know, oh, next week. Oh.
But you know what's going to happen, so that probably...
I do, but I'm not telling.
Yes. So let's start with that.
Yeah. No spoilers.
Because this is a SAG audience, I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
I got my SAG card. The first movie that I did was called Compromising Positions, directed by Frank Perry. And I did like 3 days on that, and I got my card.
Wow. For some reason, I thought Manhunter was your first movie.
No. Compromising Positions was the first. And then I did a miniseries called Evergreen. And Manhunter was like 4th or 5th.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel a little better because that was a big, great supporting role in Manhunter.
It
could
was.
have been your first.
Yeah, it was about the 5th. I think I did Peggy Sue Got Married before that one, and then I think maybe it was the 4th.
By the way, quite a few times tonight when you mentioned stuff you've done, we're probably all going to go, oh.
Oh, that's
when
sweet.
you just said Peggy Sue Got Married. I was like, oh, that's right. So I mentioned in my introduction, and as we've just discussed, you've had a very busy film career. Were you looking to do television when The Family came along?
Well, so much great writing has come to television recently. And that's a wonderful thing. And with all the new avenues of cable and streaming, it's really a richer opportunity, I think, for all actors, but particularly women of a certain age, to get to play a character that is really complex. And I wouldn't get to do this in a feature film. It just wouldn't happen. I don't think they would do a Claire Warren in the way that it's developed in this show. And so it's really a wonderful opportunity, kind of a second golden age of television, some people have been saying. I think that's true.
So did they send the script to you? Did you have more than, because immediately weren't you just like, I want answers? How much did you know when you signed up?
I just read the pilot. The creator, Jenna Bands, is right here. I want to point her out. She's right there. And Lori Zaks, the producer, and Janine, the showrunner. This is the team. Team Family's right here.
Yeah, we're going to talk after. Okay.
No, I got the pilot. Oddly enough, I wrapped Room in December of 2014, which is about a child being abducted. And in January of 2015, I got the pilot for The Family, and I said to my agent, you're kidding. This is insane. I just did that reunification scene with the child and with the press on the front yard and going through it, and but that was just an initial response, and I knew that was more of a launching pad, and that there was so much, the characters were actually quite different in how they had responded to this whole situation, and that Claire had processed the grief and the trauma, and it was really kind of a launching pad for a lot of other things to happen. So I just read the script and talked with Jenna, had really good conversations with her about what her thoughts were about the character and the show, and she's just wildly, intelligent and accessible and great to talk to, and a really good egg, and that also helps a lot.
And as, you know, a fan of the mystery of the show, when you've read that pilot, were you asking spoilerish questions like, so is he really my kid, or?
I didn't so much because I'm not great at figuring out those kinds of things in television stories. I have to admit, but I did ask Jenna enough questions, you know, that I would know enough of what kind of acting choices to make. What do I know? You know, there were things that some characters knew at the beginning that others didn't. Alison and Liam knew certain things that you'll find out as you watch the season. And I was like, you knew that from the beginning, and they were like, yeah. But the actors were really good about keeping it close to the vest. You know, some of the hair and makeup people would have speculations about things going on, which were always fun to listen to.
And it is interesting that you bring up Room because, I mean, I guess on the surface you would see similarities between those characters, but they're so different, really, when you get down to it. But at the same time, did, you know, playing Nancy in Room, did you draw on anything or research?
Well, I had done quite a bit of research about that situation for a parent when I had done Room. So, you know, I had read things about it, and I had gone on YouTube, and I don't know if you remember the J.C. Dugard case. She had been missing for about 17 or 18 years and was reunited. And there was some footage of her mother, Tracy Probin, and I was hoping to meet her, but I wasn't able to do that. And so it was helpful to me in terms of knowing how a mother responds to, like, the worst nightmare that could ever happen to them. So when I started doing the family, I felt like I had done a fair amount of the grief, you know, the grief trauma research, and Claire has processed her grief and her trauma differently. To me, she, you know, became an activist, and Nancy, the character in Room, I think stayed more quiet and contained, and you know, so they kind of chose different paths in terms of, I think, their response to this event.
And we have to talk about the amazing ensemble on this show.
Yes.
Because I don't know if you were the first person to sign on, if all these people joined up after you were in.
Was Andrew there first? Was Andrew there No?
Oh, Zach.
Very close. I mean, once Joan obviously signed on, then it becomes a lot easier to get great people who want to work with Joan. So we definitely capitalized on that.
Did you know Rupert Graves before?
I didn't. I had watched. I don't know if I watched Sherlock before or after he was cast. I think I made sure that I watched so I could see his work. Well, he got cast. He was the last actor cast.
Really?
Like 3 days before we shot. It was really down to the wire. It was very close.
Well, that's so interesting because you guys have such great chemistry.
Yeah.
It was kind of luck in a way?
Well, you know, he's a wonderful, lovely, accessible guy. He's very down to earth. The whole ensemble is. And he's done a lot of theater, and I've done a lot of theater. And I think there's something about theater actors, I have to say, that there's just kind of a, you know, come on, let's do a show, and camaraderie and ease, you know, that we kind of can fall into. And it certainly was the case with him.
Alison also,
Alison
I know,
has
mainly
done
from theater.
a lot of marvelous theater. I mean, I've seen her do some insane performances on stage in New York. Incredible work, yeah.
That's why I was kind of curious if any of you had met before, because you do come from these theater backgrounds.
No, I hadn't met anybody beforehand.
And you just built a family.
You do. You build a family,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the kind of the great thing about working on something over a period of time is you just get to know each other more and more, and you feel like you get to know the characters more and more. I knew more, I think, about Claire at the end of the 12th episode than I did on the second episode, you know, and it's a living, breathing thing that you can keep building on, which is actually really fun.
Let's talk about that 12th episode. What happens in that? So actually, I don't want to know. I do, but I don't. We talked about some of the research you put into Claire, but how do you generally approach research or approach a character? Do you have a sort of a set way that you research, or do you
You know, it really depends on what the character does. You know, I did watch for Claire. I literally Googled female mayors, towns, population 75,000 to 150,000. And I pulled up images and press conferences and, you know, because I was interested in what her public persona would be and how she would present herself when she's, you know, giving a speech or a press conference. And I watched Hillary, you know, of course. Why would you not watch Hillary? And that was an aspect that I really wanted to try to zero in on a little bit more.
Really? Was there anything you took from Hillary that might be visible in your performance?
Well, I think sometimes there's a cadence in this political, how politicians give a speech, and there's an emphasis, and sometimes there's a heightened sort of gesturing sort of thing going on, and I try to integrate those things because I think Claire is really good at it, but I think in season 2, she's going to get better and better and better at it. It's like anything. I also kind of wanted her to be good at it, but not like fabulous. It was try to find that in-between line of somebody who's kind of on the road and kind of learning as she goes along.
That's interesting because one of my favorite movies of all time is The Contender.
Oh, yeah.
I love The Candidate also, but it's a different movie, in which you play, you know, I don't need to tell you, but for anyone who doesn't know, a potential female vice president.
Yes.
And that is someone who is very polished.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's been quite a while ago. Then I got a little rusty over those years. Yeah, and she's different. She's a liberal, close to the vest kind of, and Claire is more conservative. And, you know, I remember when Jenna's saying to me at one point, I think I want to make her Republican. I said, go for it. I said, it's going to be so fun because it's different from me, and it's a different, you know, certainly politically different from me. But I thought as an actor, it would just be, in some ways, I think she's brighter than Sarah Palin, but I think there are some Sarah Palin things about Claire.
Really?
Because she shoots from the hip more. And I think she's definitely a lot brighter, intelligent than Sarah Palin, but she isn't a studied politician. Hillary was on the track from college. You know, she studied law, and Claire's been, you know, a stay-at-home mom who I picture was like aces she probably was president of the PTA, she probably organized the school fundraiser, you know, that she was very hands-on and just realized that these kind of people skills and organizational skills were something that she was really good at. And then she had this horrible thing happened that I think propelled her into activism, and she had a platform. She had something that she truly heartfeltly believed in.
And now she's very determined.
Yes. Yeah, she is. She is.
I actually have a question from the audience, and forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. I believe is it Sheila Ratner? Oh, I like the spelling of it. Says, it seems like feeling trapped is a theme in the family. Your child was a prisoner, your son is an alcoholic, your daughter's a perfectionist. What do you feel your character is most afraid of, and how is she trapped?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think that they all are trapped in their own ways, basically in response to the catastrophe of this event that happened in their lives. I have this theory that if Adam had never been kidnapped, we wouldn't make a series about these people because their lives would have probably been pretty boring, you know. Happily, you know, Danny might have been a little off, but he might not have gone nearly as far as he went. And I think that, I don't know that Claire feels, I think that she has focused her grief and her trauma into her work. And so I think the way I portray it is that she really wants to do well in this, to make the world a better place. And so, and I think she wants her family to do well, and I think she wants her marriage to hopefully survive. So she's fighting for, I think, a lot of stuff. And fighting for her marriage, fighting for her work to go well, so that hopefully she can make a difference. But I think all those things I recognize in all the other characters that you mentioned.
And what's been the hardest scene of the episodes we've seen so far for you to sort of pull off, either emotionally or maybe even physically?
Well, one of the most draining you haven't seen yet. So
Tell us about that.
you know, I mean, it would be funny. My makeup artist today, who was so lovely, Patricia, I would come and sit in the chair, and many days she would go, she's from Switzerland, she's not so very happy today, is she? I think the makeup is not so, and I said, I know. She said, Claire's not having a very good time of it today. So there were a lot of sad, you know, I would, one day, this scene that is coming up, it was a Friday, and I said to some friends, I'm like, well, I'm going to Cry Day Friday, because this is my day, and I'm going to be ripping my guts out for 7 hours. And Jen was actually, she happened to be there that day. And, you know, that's draining and taxing. But sometimes, you know, it's really small moments that almost are harder to, I remember Andrew McCarthy, who beautifully directed 3 of the episodes, as well as doing an insane performance and is an amazing director. There was one just little kitchen scene where I'm coming in and I'm catching Nina and John, you know, like they're having a conversation in the foyer, and I've just come in and it's like, what's going on here? And he really pulled me aside and said, well, what's happened right before this? Because you can kind of, for little scenes like that, you can kind of get not specific, and you just kind of walk in and go, well, hey, what's going on? And that kind of trying to be as specific as you can, even in the small moments, almost is harder in some ways than doing the big kind of thing. It's you have to stay on top of it, you know, so you don't get vague.
And Cheryl and Tebby, is that correct? Oh, okay. We discussed how you emotionally prepare for a character, but she's curious, do you have a process of letting go of the character after filming?
I don't hang on too much. I think maybe because I did so much theater for so many years, and did, you know, at Steppenwolf in Chicago, and we would do play after play after play of horribly sad, depressed, deranged, suicidal characters that are just, you know, very unhappy. And I kind of learned to kind of let go of them afterwards. I'm pretty good, you know, after this one emotional day. I mean, it took me about an hour to stop shaking. I was like, and we shot something afterwards. We got in a van and we went to some park out on Long Island and shot until 3 a.m. after we shot this emotional scene. And in the van, I was a little bit like, okay. And it took me about an hour, you know, to like get the blood pressure back down, because your body doesn't know that it's not real. You're going through it. The chemicals are getting released anyway. It doesn't know that it's not real. And so, you know, but I mean, I do think about characters. I think about them, you know, after I'm done with them, but I don't like live in some sort of, you know, they don't sort of take me over and hold me hostage.
Are there characters you miss and then characters that you're happy to let go of?
I don't know. I just have this feeling that it's you get to play a character. It's a transitory, you know, short-term experience, and so I kind of know that going in, and I just sort of go, the time that I'm spending on this is the amount of time I'm supposed to be spending on it, and when it's over, it's over. And that's the nature of this kind of work. And you'll then go on to the next thing. Some people say, what is the favorite thing you've ever done? And I said, well, it's the thing I'm working on right now. That's always the, you know, usually, because I'll pick something that I really want to do.
Mm-hmm. And when was the last time you did theater?
The last play I did it will be 3 years ago this fall. I went back to my stomping grounds at Steppenwolf in Chicago, and I did a really wacky, abstract, wonderful play called The Wheel. And that was the first time I had been back to my theater in over 20 years, and it was amazing reunion and experience. It was great.
It's amazing. Oh, you're going to have to help me with this last name, Mark. That's what I would have guessed. Wants to know, how do you take the hit, as my coach says, or react so well to what the other actors are saying to you? You're so good at really listening and reacting in the moment. Last night's episode especially.
You know, that was my training at Steppenwolf for all those years. We really worked and prided ourselves on trying to be fresh every night. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you got to pull technique out of your pocket because it's just not there. But it really was a lot. I really attribute Steppenwolf the work that I did with that theater company for so many years. We were so close and we were so critical with each other. You know, the standard, the bar was really high for what we thought was acceptable work. And you really had to stay on your toes. And one of the things really was like, last night's performance is over, tonight's whole it's like a baseball player. Okay, last night's game's over. You know, I compare it a lot to, you're only as good as your last game to athletics. And sometimes you do better than other times. And we really tried to stay fresh and keep growing with the material and stay in, you know, try not to get in a rut and try to really just take the person in that's in front of you. You know, a lot of acting is reacting to what's going on around you, and so that was just a lot of my early training.
When you started out in theater, was the plan to just be a theater actor, or did you always want to do movies and TV?
I never had thought about doing films. I was so glad to be part of the Steppenwolf Theater Company in Chicago and doing play after play after play. You know, I grew up in this small town in northern Illinois. I didn't know how I was going to even get to the big city. And I kind of fell into being, I went to college with John Malkovich, who was a Steppenwolf member and invited me into the company. And so I kind of went from one family, my real family, to that family, and there was a support, and I didn't have to do a thing that a lot of actors do, which is put, you know, photos under casting directors' doors and knock on, you know, agents' doors. I didn't have an agent until I was 28. I just did theater in Chicago, and so that really, I hadn't even really thought about being in film. And then I had the good fortune of a play that Steppenwolf had done that got brought to New York, and that's when I got an agent, and that's when I started doing film. And it terrified me at first because I didn't understand stopping on a mark and hitting your light and all that, and all the chaos. I was used to so much more freedom. The curtain goes up, you do your own thing, you know, you stay fresh, you try to modify it, and this was so much more precise. And I was like, oh, and I didn't understand the language. So I came to it late, but once it clicked, I was really, I would say it took 5 years before film acting really made sense to me. Because I had done so much, and it was like, oh, now I get it. Jeff Bridges was very helpful when I did this film called Tucker with him.
Sorry, you just said Tucker? Aww.
He just, one day I just said, because he'd been doing it since he was a kid, and he had this really, Vittorio Storaro was the DP, this, you know, Italian painterly genius, and he had the most balletic, complex blocking, and Jeff, you know, there was one time Mr. Storaro was trying to get me to hit a mark because he wanted the light to just like, this side is blue for women, this side is yellow for life. And I could not hit my mark. And he finally had to just go like that. And I felt so mortified. I mean, this was Vittorio Storaro. And so I just watched Jeff Bridges working, and I said, Jeff, how do you do it? And the light and the movement and the hair people coming and the wardrobe people doing all this. And how do you have an emotion? And he said, he helped me so much, because I spent so much time going, get out of my space, and I was angry. He was like, don't touch me. And he said, I embraced them. and I bring them into me, and I realize instead of fighting them off, I go, I can't do what I do until they do what they do, and I think of them as my angels. And it just totally turned my perspective around. I stopped all the negative energy, that I was being angry and upset that all these people were touching me and I couldn't figure out how to cry on a dime and hit my mark. And I just opened to the idea of stopping that and being embracing and finding my own space to stay focused, even with all that other stuff going on.
That character, too, is so warm and embracing. It's surprising to hear that you felt, stilted at times.
I just was still feeling, like I wasn't quite getting the medium. And, but shortly after, it was like, oh. When I did this film called Ethan Frome, which was like in 1990, I think that's when it really, I was like, oh, this is how it works. And you can stop and ask the director a question. You can actually say, I don't understand this. I always felt like, okay, there's money, money, money. Okay, I just got to hit my mark and say my line. And so it took me a while to ease into it.
But by 1990, you'd done a lot of movies. I mean, you'd worked with Coppola twice, at least.
I had worked with Coppola twice. I had done Manhunter. I think, I don't know.
Had you done Searching for Bobby Fischer?
I think I had done Searching for Bobby Fischer. I had done that. And so I had done, several 7 to 8 films before the Ethan Frome, where I was kind of like, oh, I really... But I was a bit more of a primary character in Ethan Frome, and I felt like I could take the time out to actually, ask the director a question.
Are you able to go back and look at your performances, or is it?
I can't. I don't really. Yeah. I mean, I definitely watch them when they come out, and I am watching The Family, and I tend to watch it twice because the first time is a little bit like, what were we doing that day and what was going on? And, oh no, yeah, I remember. And so it helps me to process. I always watch it twice. And, but I don't really watch, I haven't seen The Contender since it came out. I think I've seen I've seen Pleasantville since it came out.
Sorry.
Oh, that's so sweet. And I think I watched, my daughter's sitting in the back, my beautiful daughter, Sadie. I watched Face Off with you, Sadie, I think.
Wait, I wouldn't watch Face Off with my mother.
I think it really scared her. I think she wasn't quite ready for it. It was on television one night.
Face Off also, you worked with John Woo on that. You've worked with all these amazing directors.
Yes.
What is it you hope for from a director when you show up to set?
I hope for basically unconditional love. Really, I want them to love. I want to feel, I'm of the school where which most people are, I think these days, you do better with sugar than with vinegar. You draw more bees with sugar than vinegar. And I'm always surprised when I meet people occasionally that say, oh, I do better when somebody's like really a jerk to me and really mean and really drives me, and I completely shut down. Yeah. I can't function. And I need somebody to basically feel like they love me and that, try this, try that, it's okay. It's okay if it doesn't work, it's only digital, don't worry about it. Because then it makes you braver to me, and it makes you freer, and so I just like that. I like kindness and intelligence and, supportiveness.
How strange is it, because your on-screen relationship with Andrew McCarthy is so contentious, to have him directing? Are you just able to have him switch hats like that?
Well, yeah, I haven't actually been in a scene with him where I've been in it and he's directed an episode. So it's been a little more separate from that. We didn't have that experience. He directed me, but not in a scene with him. And he knows actors so well, and and he's been one, and I think he's been quoted saying, just make them believe that you love them, and he's really got a very keen eye. I mean, we had wonderful directors across the board, but I think there was just, he was because he's been an actor, he could just kind of walk by and say one little thing, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? Okay, let's go, and just do it, with, he has incredible vitality and supportiveness.
He's just so good at being so creepy on this show that it would be hard for me to I'd just be like, yeah, I'll do whatever you say.
Well, I think he's creepy, but I think he's heartbreaking too.
Yeah.
I think he's just
heartbreaking so far. I'm not completely sold on his total innocence yet.
Well, my daughter Sadie at one point said he is the most sympathetic character thus far.
He kind of is.
And because he's trying so hard to not act on his impulses, and he just doesn't have the tools, he just doesn't, for whatever, he's just, his development, whatever, is not, it doesn't excuse, and it doesn't mean that he still isn't creepy, but that, like all the characters, they're not all one thing. They're a combination of shades of gray, which I think makes them incredibly relatable.
And it's like you were saying at the beginning, I don't think you could do that in a movie. We get to see this unfold week after week, and peel back these layers and kind of learn why he is the way he is, why all these people are.
You learn more and more. It's like, and you'll see a later episode, and then it refers back to, oh, that's why they did that in the episode 2 or 3, and that's what's so interesting, and cool about it. And I don't know how Jenna ever figured it out, but she did.
I mean, do you know everything? Did you know in advance, I should say, everything that was going to happen to Claire? Would you have played any scenes differently?
I don't. No, I think I knew everything I needed to know. Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah. And so I felt equipped, even though we would get the upcoming episodes like a week before, and the actors would all go crazy, going, "Oh my God, can you believe what it is now? Can you believe what we're doing? Oh my God, it's crazy!"
Were there any moments in scripts we've seen so far that kind of made your jaw drop?
Oh yeah, there were multiple ones.
Yeah.
Multiple ones. I don't even know that I could pick out a specific one. We would just get the episodes and go, oh my gosh, can you believe that? And can you believe that? And
yeah. We have a question from, I think it's Tony Q. Grant. Is that right? Okay. Wants to know, what advice would you give yourself if you could talk to yourself 20 years ago?
That's wow. What advice would I give myself? I guess I would say loosen up a little bit. Maybe have a little more fun. Don't take it take it really seriously, but not so seriously. I think I would say let it be. Just be a little more lighthearted about it. I think I've kind of grown into that a little bit more over the years. Not that I'm not one of those actors like Daniel Day-Lewis that stays in character the whole time and needs to be called by the character name and things like that. But I do think, I do think I would, was like, oh, I've got to be really on top of it, and I'm a little more fluid. Yes, I need to be prepared, but I'm a little more open and less, freaking out about. I gotta know everything.
Speaking of fun, are you able to have fun on set when you're doing these dramatic roles? I imagine with Room, working with Jacob Tremblay, it's hard to be in a dour mood while you're shooting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really depends on the scene. I do when I have to get really emotional and cry and things like that. I do kind of have to go into a bit of a zone, and I can't really talk to people for just really surrounding that when that scene. I get pretty quiet, and I like to go back to my dressing room a lot in between and just kind of regroup. But for lighter-hearted scenes, yes, absolutely, I can do it to a degree. But I always like to bring myself back some actors are just like razor sharp, and they can be just and I need a little more. I need a little bit, even if it's kind of light, just kind of like, okay, what's the circumstance? What are we stepping into? Okay, I need to just. I need a minute or two at least.
And what do you think has been your most difficult role, looking back on your career?
Most difficult role. Wow. I would say the most difficult. I know which one it is. I know the Bourne films.
Really?
Hardest. By far the hardest. And that's because she's a CIA person, and the techno speak I cannot memorize. It is like memorizing the phone book to me. And I drill it, and I drill it, and I drill it. I mean, the one time I had a nervous breakdown on a set, because I'm not a I'm pretty low maintenance to work with. I'm self-sufficient, I'm from the Midwest, you take care of yourself. But there was one day on, I think it was the last Bourne, and she was supposed to be, authoritative and giving orders to a whole room of people and on computer screens, and I could not get the lines. And they even put up some cue cards for me, which that's like the most mortifying thing I can imagine ever happening. And Paul, and I was really having a break. I literally could only shoot like 5 seconds at a time, like one sentence. And Paul Greengrass, the marvelous, delightful, lovely, warm, supportive director that directs, and he's directing the next one now, just kept saying, darling, it doesn't matter. We're cutting it so fast. We're cutting it so fast. I'm like, but this is my job, and I'm supposed to, what's wrong with me? I cannot do this. I cannot. That kind of language, just, it's like, I would liken it to like the old thermometers that had mercury in them, if you broke them, and the mercury just goes, it's like I would have it memorized, and then they'd go, okay, action. Where is it? Where did it go? So that was really the hardest for me.
So I want to remind everyone that this show airs on Sunday nights. You guys probably all know. We have like 5 episodes left, I think.
4.
4 episodes left.
There are 4 left.
Can you give us anything? Just a tease of something?
Keep watching.
Okay, we
but
will.
it does. It really. The season is, and the season ender. The final episode is pretty crazy, and it ends on a really amazing, wonderful cliffhanger. Because when questions get answered, as they are throughout, other questions get presented, and that's one of the great things about the show.
Well, I cannot wait.
Great.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jenelle.
for a great show.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.